Hi everyone, it's Kim at Midpoint Astrology, and I'm going to talk to you about midpoints and how to understand where they are in the astrological chart. If we look at midpoints from every planet to the ascendant and to include the midheaven and a few other points, we're going to have over 100 midpoints to look at. So right away know that we aren't going to plot every midpoint that we can find in the chart. We're going to select our midpoints carefully, deciding on what we want to amplify, what we want to look at. But first of all, what are they? How do we find them? There's a brief delineation of midpoints online. You can see the URL up here. Here's a simple way to understand what midpoints are in the chart. Let's start with a blank wheel. It's just a circle. You can see we have the astrological signs going around counterclockwise from Aries to Pisces. This is the flow of the natural chart. So right here on the ascendant, we start the zodiac at 0 degrees of Aries. And each sign is going to contain 30 degrees. And we go all the way around till we get to Pisces, which is 360 degrees. So we've got this entire circle. Now, each sign begins at a certain degree of the circle. Aries begins at 0, Taurus begins at 30, Gemini begins at 60, Cancer begins at 90, all the way around, adding 30 degrees per sign until we get to Pisces, which begins at 330. And it's a perfect match for the zodiac in this natural order. Now, let's say the ascendant is 0 degrees of Aries, and 10 degrees in, we'll put the sun. We'll say that this person was born with the sun at 10 Aries. All right, so there's the sun at 10 Aries. If we wanted to find the midpoint between the ascendant at 0 Aries and the sun at 10 degrees of Aries, we can just easily do that in our heads and know that the midpoint between the ascendant and the sun for this person is going to be 5 degrees of Aries. Let's say that we have Venus, we'll say it's 10 Gemini. The sun at 10 Aries, Venus at 10 Gemini, what's the midpoint going to be? It's going to be right here at 10 degrees of Taurus. That's going to be the sun and Venus midpoint. So those are easy to spot. So how are we going to find midpoints when they're not so obvious? What if we have the sun here at 10 and maybe we have Neptune over here at 29 Libra? Okay, now I have to kind of squint and think about what that might be. Well, no, you don't. You don't have to squint. What we do is we reduce the zodiac to degrees of the circle. Here's how we do it. So if we have the sun at 10 Aries, and we have Neptune at 29 Libra, we're simply going to add that 29 degrees to Libra, which is 180, and we're going to add 10 degrees to Aries. Let's just look at this on the calculator. So Sun is 10 Aries, that's 10. Libra is 180 degrees, so we start with 180, and it's 29 degrees into that 180, so we're going to add 29, and we're going to get 219 degrees. We take that 219 and we're going to divide it by 2. And we get 109.5. Okay, so 109 is the midpoint. Where's 109? Well, we know that 90 is Cancer. So we subtract Cancer, we get 19, so the midpoint is going to be 19 degrees 5 Cancer. All right, let's look at that here on the chart, and it'll make more sense, or equal sense, I hope. So here's the sun at 10 Aries. Over here, we're going to squeeze Neptune in at 29 Libra. 29 Libra, and the midpoint we've worked out is 19 degrees of Cancer. And that visually, you always double check, that looks about right. The other thing to know about finding midpoints is that there's always a near midpoint. As the zodiac goes counterclockwise, the quickest way for Aries to get to Libra is through Cancer. However, the far midpoint will always be opposite at 19, in this case 19 Capricorn. There are always two midpoints in the circle. One's called the near midpoint and the other is the far. All right, what can this actually tell us about our astrology and our deliberate creation? Let's use an example here. This is the chart of Good Vibe Astrology. And it's pretty interesting here because one of the more interesting midpoints to look at is the Sun-Moon midpoint. Here we have the Sun-Moon midpoint is at 2 Gemini. Now, what this means in terms of Good Vibe Astrology is the combination of the sun, empowerment, shining forth into the world, connections with the public, doing one's thing, it's very animous out there in the world, and the moon, which is more of the feeling realm, creative, feminine communication. The combination of those two is 2 Gemini. And of course, we know Gemini is all about teaching. What makes it even more interesting, if we go over here, and we can see my natal chart, one of the things you're going to notice right away is the sun, my natal sun, is 2 Gemini. So the actual midpoint between Good Vibe Astrology's sun and moon, I have the sun conjunct. So I become a channel for this energy of Good Vibe Astrology. And what you'll find with midpoints is that they show you how energies blend in your chart and how best you can express the combination of planets or planets and points in your chart. They show you when that energy is being activated by a transit or a progression, particularly an eclipse. They also engage through synastry. So if another person has a planet on our midpoint, they're going to wake up that combination of energy for us. If we go back to looking at this midpoint sort, we see that 1 degree of Aries in the Good Vibe Astrology chart happens to be the Venus-Jupiter midpoint. Venus-Jupiter. This is like joy and expansion and aesthetics and pulling things all together and forming and bonding and facilitating relationships. That's right there at 1 degree of Aries. If we look at Jeanette's chart, we see that her sun is 1 degree of Libra. So her sun is basically on the far midpoint of this very significant Venus-Jupiter midpoint of the Good Vibe Astrology. So I hope that's clarified things for you. So I'd like everybody to try their sun, moon, and any other planetary combination they like. Try it by hand first, then you can double check by computer and see if you've gotten it right. Okay, that's it for today. Bye.